follow the top 5 or 10 companies that you're interested in. So if it's, General Dynamics, Intel, Amazon, whatever, 5, 10 companies that maybe you're interested in working for, or that you're interested in the type of
Welcome, everybody, to the Resourceful Vet Podcast. I'm your host, Taylor Wilson, and today we have Michael Dillman on here to talk to you about tech. Michael, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Taylor. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So, Michael, I know that you're in the tech industry, you're a tech recruiter, and my question to you is who is tech for?
Yeah, great question. I think it's a good way to kind of jump right into it. So like you mentioned, I do tech recruiting. I've been a tech recruiter for about 5 years, currently working with Eastridge Workforce Solutions. And so we do a lot of IT tech. So, more like software engineering, that type of thing, as well as, hands-on engineering tech. So that's more of, mechanical engineers, that type of thing as well. So overall, I'd say, tech really is for anyone. Anyone who's interested in getting into tech. I think it's especially true, for your audience being a lot of, military veterans. Tech really is a very broad field, and it can go a lot of different ways. Like I said, more like computer, IT engineering, or hands-on tech engineering. So I'd say anyone who has an interest, anyone who has any type of, affinity for, not necessarily math, but any type of, hands-on, like to work with your hands, like technology, and are interested in kind of the way that the future will work. So that's typically how I look at tech. A lot of times when you're looking at jobs, and when you see kind of the trend in job markets, a lot of the tech roles that will be available in 5 years, they don't even have jobs for right now, right? A lot of the jobs will be created in the next 5-10 years. So I'd say it's a great industry to get in for anyone who, is interested in, kind of the future and how things are going to be done in the future. So yeah, I'd say anyone who has an interest, anyone who's willing to put in hard work as well. It's highly technical and, can be challenging. So anyone who's willing to kind of roll up their sleeves and really, get involved, I'd say those are probably some of the best people to get involved in tech.
Well, I know too that there's this conversation about, you should have degrees, or degrees don't matter as much as certifications and vice versa. And I'm just interested to know, what does hireable mean in the tech world?
Yeah, so people who are hireable in tech, I think you point out a couple of good things. So first off, a degree. Typically companies do like to see, a piece of paper, whether it's associate's degree, bachelor's degree, ideally, with some type of a technical discipline, right? That could be just in general IT, that could be in computer engineering, software engineering, computer science, then all the other, mechanical, electrical engineering. So a degree is definitely a good first step for a lot of people. But it's interesting, again, if you're coming out of the military, a lot of times you have some really good skills, right? You have a lot of, if electronics on a sub, or, if you've worked in IT at all, or even working with stuff like, work with optics, like that is an oriented role. And there really is a lot of engineering that goes into, things that might seem commonplace or seem normal. Anyone who has a military background has a really kind of a different way of thinking about things, a logical way of thinking about things, and it's very process oriented. So I'd say that, that's a good way to get into tech, just having some of those innate skills and being able to troubleshoot problems on the fly quickly with limited resources. So those are the types of people that companies look for, who are resourceful, who are, intelligent, who can reason through things pretty quickly. So in order to be hireable, I would say, one of 3 things, right? So get a degree in any type of technical discipline, get any type of like technical certifications. CompTIA or CompTIA is a great organization. They provide a lot of certifications for networking, so like network security, just general IT certifications, but security, networking, again, broad IT. There are lots of different certifications that you can check out through them. The courses are pretty straightforward. Typically, a few weeks for a course, and then you have to take a test. And they're pretty cheap. If you want to it's a great way to get your foot in the door. So a lot of companies, a lot of entry level positions, like, for example, like a help desk or desktop support technician. Those types of positions where you need a high school diploma and, maybe a certification. So that's a really good way to become hireable quickly without going through the whole, degree process. Would just be getting some certifications from, CompTIA or any other organization like that. And the third way, the less traditional way, is really just being a good interviewer and, just saying, hey, look, I have experience, I have a degree or, high school diploma. And then, if you have experience in the military, that's a great way. I actually, a quick example is one of the first people that I helped find a job for here at Eastridge. He came right out of the military, didn't have a degree, and it was a systems analyst position that I was talking to him about. And he was like, look, the job description says you need a bachelor's degree. It says you need at least a couple years of experience. And I knew that this company, they were looking to actually hire veterans. That was part of some initiative they were working on. And so that was a big check. And the other thing is that he had 5 years of experience in the military as a systems network and systems analyst. So he had the experience. He'd been doing the job. It's just he didn't have any certifications, didn't have a degree. He was a great guy, interviewed really well. Everybody loved him, and they ended up making him an offer. And I think he's still there, actually. So that's just a great example that I love using that example. He had posted his resume. He was getting out of, I think it was Army, actually. So he was getting out of the Army in a week, and posted his resume. I contacted him, and the day I think that he was honorably just discharged, a couple of days after that, he actually ended up starting this job. So again, there's a lot of different ways that you can get hired in tech. Again, traditional ways are schooling and certifications. And then, if you interview well, or if you have a job, in the military related to tech, I think that's another really good way. A lot of transferable skills there.
Well, I know too that even with schooling and certifications, it can be hard to break into that job field or, landing your next career. And so I'm interested to know, why is it important to have a social online presence?
Yeah, so that's a really good point. And you're right. It can be tough, even if you have a degree, even if you have a bachelor's of science and computer science and certifications, it can be really tough to get into IT and tech in general. The thing is that a lot of employers nowadays, they like to see that you have some type of online presence, hopefully a positive one, right? So, we were all taught, don't post all the crazy party pictures and don't post anything inappropriate. More and more, it's becoming, imperative, I think, to post appropriate things and really have some type of a presence on social media. Primarily LinkedIn, if you're looking at jobs. A lot of companies, actually pretty much every company I know of, will at least look at your LinkedIn profile before you start a new job. I always recommend having some type of picture. I think it's a really good way just to, professional headshot is ideal. Again, coming out of the military, you have really good headshots, looking good in the dress blues or whatever. So I always think that that's a good picture to put. I mentioned it, a lot of companies do have, certain initiatives where they hire a certain percentage of veterans. So if you do have those, photos that you took, those are a great way, just to post a picture just so people can, put a face to the name. And I always recommend, even if you're not, posting, lots of crazy stuff and doing all that, like, you don't need to have a really intense social media presence. But one thing that I always suggest is, follow the top 5 or 10 companies that you're interested in. So if it's, General Dynamics, Intel, Amazon, whatever, 5, 10 companies that maybe you're interested in working for, or that you're interested in the type of work that they do. So, other examples like Boston Dynamics, if you're like, wow, that's a really cool company. They developed those, cool robots, the dog robots that can open doors. Follow them, like some of the things that they post, repost some of the things that you think are really cool. If a company's looking at your LinkedIn and they see, oh, maybe they're a robotics company, and you liked a lot of the Boston Dynamics, robot videos. At least they know, like, hey, this person's somewhat active. They're, doing the research. They're in the, active in the community. That's a really good way to kind of set yourself apart, and at least show that you have interests. Because if you just put a bare bones, if you don't put a picture, if you don't really put anything, maybe you put a resume. It's hard for employers to get a sense of who you are. So I always say, even if it's just a few weeks before you're applying for jobs, whatever it is, I always recommend to basically anyone, get out there, get involved, subscribe to your page, whatever, follow people who are connected in the community that you're interested in. And a lot of times it's good because even if you don't get a job right away, you can make good connections that way, and then people see you're active, and it's a good way just to kind of broaden, your horizons that way.
Absolutely. Well, I know too, you said, following certain companies, and, I still think at the same time too, there's, people that are on the fence of they want to go into a certain industry. They're just not sure what role they want to take on. And so I'm interested to know is how can people find out more about careers in IT?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways. Like I mentioned, social media is a great way. Go on LinkedIn, follow companies, do research on companies that you're interested in. I know that there are some really good resources, coming out of the military. You have people who are helping find jobs afterwards, but that only goes so far, right? If you're really interested in a specific, career, in tech, it is helpful, to really, do your research and get out there. And one of the ways I think is best is just to apply to a lot of different companies. And a couple of good resources, LinkedIn, I mentioned, that's probably the number one, way that you can just kind of peruse, like look around and not necessarily apply for jobs, but you can see a lot of different jobs. And then you have the option to apply as well. But then Indeed, it's the number one job site. More people find jobs on Indeed than pretty much any other job site, I think. So there are, tens of thousands of jobs listed on Indeed. And so that's a good way where, you just type in, tech jobs, or if you want to go specifically into IT jobs, desktop support jobs, engineering technician jobs. So if you just search them and, you see some that look good or that you look like you're qualified for, do research on the company that's posting that job, right? So see kind of what that company's about, look up similar companies. So if you're interested, again, in robotics, look for robotics jobs, and then look at all the different companies, because, there are lots of the big, the Fortune 500s and Fortune 100 companies that most people, if you saw the name of the company, you'd be like, oh, okay, I'm familiar with that company. But below that are, again, basically tens of thousands of companies that are probably smaller, more tight knit, maybe a better fit for someone who's looking for, just to make a transition into the working world. Sometimes for some of the big companies, you can really feel like just another number or, a cog in the machine. Whereas some of the smaller companies, you really do feel valued. You feel like you can make an impact. And typically the level of training and investment in your future, it can be a lot higher with some smaller companies. So just do your research, look on, after you look on Indeed or, LinkedIn or Monster or ZipRecruiter, whatever job board or job site you look at, do your research, go on Glassdoor, see what the company reviews are. Glassdoor is a great tool, where you get some really, unfiltered, feedback on companies. There are some pretty brutal reviews on companies, where you say, okay, maybe I want to stay away from them. Other companies where you might say, oh, wow, this place seems great. People will post typically some pretty honest feedback about the companies. So again, I always say job boards are the best place just to start doing research. It is helpful just to plug, recruiting. I always think if a recruiter reaches out to you, always pick up the phone, always try to make the connection, especially if you're just starting out. On LinkedIn and on Indeed, you have, there are different settings that you can put where you can say like, hey, I'm open to new opportunities, or like, hey, reach out to me about opportunities. Typically, if you do that, you'll get reached out to within a week or so. And what's good about, talking to recruiters, working with recruiters is, instead of applying to one job at one company where sometimes you send a resume and, it's the black hole, right? You don't really hear back. If you're working with a recruiter at a recruiting company, personally, I have access to, about 100 clients, we'll say, within the Southwest. So I have 100 clients that I'm working with. So I might reach out to you, Taylor, for example, I might reach out to you about, a help desk job. And I might say, hey, I got this client, it's a help desk job. And, you might say, I don't really want to work for that job, for that company, but I want to work, a help desk job. Well, great. I have 100 other companies. Every company has someone at their help desk. So typically it gives you, like, a recruiter will be an extra set of eyes for you who can really do a lot of the hard work. And so if I know, like, hey, Taylor's super, he's got, 2 certifications, no real professional experience, but, he's looking for an entry-level job. Great. Like, I know that I have clients that, every couple of months they hire a new help desk person, or, every 6 months they typically will have a new project that they need, additional help on. So again, it gives you a really good resource, an extra set of eyes. And then typically, I'll even refer you to other recruiting companies. If I say, hey, Taylor, I don't really do the type of recruiting for the roles that you're interested in, but I know, this recruiting company right down the street, does. It's a really good way just to have, again, like, make connections, reach out, like, don't be scared to pick up the phone and talk to somebody. Again, that's the best way, is just being active, being social. Sometimes it can be hard, right? Like, I know when I was first looking for a job, coming out of college, there are thousands of positions out there, and there are all these companies, and it can be overwhelming just to say, like, where do I start? So the way to start is, have some type of social media presence, ideally on LinkedIn, apply, and really treat finding a job as your full-time job. And I think you'll find, a lot of times within a couple of weeks, you end up finding a job and getting hired. So those are my suggestions. Work with recruiters if the option's there. Don't be afraid to apply and to interview, and to, don't be afraid to fail, right? A lot of times the best way to practice for an interview is to just do an interview, maybe mess up, maybe put your foot in your mouth, maybe, maybe not make the best impression, but then understanding, like, okay, here's how I can improve. And a lot of times companies are very forthcoming with their feedback, right? They don't want you to be, sitting out just wondering, oh, hey, how did I do? They'll say, hey, we want someone who's more personable, or maybe someone with more certifications, or whatever it is. Companies typically are pretty honest with their feedback. So yeah, just don't be afraid to make mistakes, get out there. Eventually, pretty much everyone who wants to be involved in tech will find a job in tech. Sometimes you got to start as a low man on the totem pole, help desk, just basically setting up computers, unboxing them, if that's what it takes to kind of get where you want to be. So yeah, I always say, like, have kind of a goal in mind, but be humble, especially if you're just starting off. No job should be beneath you, really, no matter what. Even if you kind of, you have to sweep the floors for a couple of weeks before, they even let you on a computer, do that just to, prove that you're really willing to, do what it takes to, get involved in the tech industry. Because yeah, it really is, it is the industry of the future. A lot of the problems that we're looking to solve today are solved with tech. So great industry to be in. And again, if you're a hard worker, it's probably the right place for you.
Well, Michael, it's a pleasure you being here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. Yeah, appreciate you having me. feel free, if anyone's reaching out to you about, my information, feel free to pass it along to them. I'm happy to connect with anyone who's looking to break into tech. And really just appreciate your time and having me here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.